largely Australian contingent, designated Sparrow Force, was sent to defend Timor in December 1941. It consisted of 1,400 personnel, comprising of the 2nd 40th Battalion AIF, supporting units, and the 2nd Independent Commando Company. The commandos were subsequently sent to protect the airfield at Dili in Portuguese East Timor. A Japanese force of some 6,000 men invaded Timor on the 20th of February 1942, and after a brief period of intense fighting, overwhelmed the small contingent. The one section of commandos left to defend the airfield did so with great vigour and conducted a fighting withdrawal to join the remainder of their unit in the hills surrounding Dili. One of the last orders issued from Sparrow Force headquarters was that all radios were to be destroyed prior to capture. Consequently, the Australian High Command had no certainty as to the fate of the 2nd, and for almost 3 months the unit was officially listed as missing. The 2nd, comprising of approximately 250 personnel, now found itself cut off behind enemy lines. However, the commandos had been trained for such a situation, and with the ongoing and selfless support from the local Timorese, they were able to wage a successful guerrilla campaign. Even though they had a loyal following of supporting Timorese, the commandos began to run low on critical supplies, ammunition, medical stores, and currency for payment to keep the locals on side. The tropical weather and arduous terrain quickly wore out their clothing, and in particular their boots. In order to continue fighting, they required urgent resupply, but with all of the radios destroyed, they had no means of contacting the mainland. A decision was quickly made to build a set. Raiding parties were sent out to the last known location of military radios, and a couple of sets were commandeered or donated from plantation owners. The task of constructing the radio set fell to a small section of signallers, led in no small part by Signaller Max Lovelace. Signaller Lovelace, 37, was originally a radio technician from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation's Hobart radio station. The signallers had a difficult task. The 109 set radios initially issued to the commandos were very short range, only good for about 30 kilometres. The radio set in Dili that had been previously used to contact Sparrow Force headquarters was now in enemy hands. The signallers commenced work on the 1st of April 1942 within a small windowless hut near the village of Mape. The improvised set comprised of crystals from a transmitter acquired from Antuba, and from other Portuguese sets, Lovelace constructed an oscillator, which produced a frequency and used other parts from a Portuguese receiver to construct a power supply. By early April, Lovelace had started work on the amplifier using valves from the old issued 109 set. All the items were housed in the two halves of a kerosene tin. A donated 6-volt generator and captured kerosene mixed with diesel was used to run a 6-volt 100-watt battery charger, which was salvaged from a car near Dili. By the 15th of April, Signaller Lovelace had charged his batteries and could listen into the radio traffic in Darwin. This feat alone bore great significance. The commandos learned for the first time that Australia had not been invaded, contrary to the propaganda leaflets distributed by the Japanese. By the 17th of April, Lovelace had the radio set ready for signalling to Australia. The signallers identified themselves using their last recognised code, Yankee Charlie Foxtrot, the call sign for Sparrow Force. However, without knowing that it had been made redundant by the Japanese invasion of Timor, and without knowing that the faint signal could barely be heard in Darwin. Again, on the night of the 18th of April, they signalled. In Darwin, a senior signals officer, Captain Honeysett, was on duty the night when the weak and outdated signal came through. The next evening, Honeysett ordered that all radio communication in the region be shut down so the signal could be heard clearly. Honeysett thought that the signal could have come from the enemy, given that Yankee Charlie Foxtrot was no longer in use. For verification, one of the Darwin signallers knew that signaller Jack Sargent was with Sparrow Force in Timor, and he asked if he was with them. Indeed he was. Jack Sargent was one of the men crouched beside the radio. The Darwin signaller asked, "What is the Christian name of Jack Sargent's wife?" Sargent answered that it was Kath. Then the Darwin signaller asked a second question. What was Sargent's street address? Sargent gave the details, followed by a stunning message that said, "Force intact and still fighting. Stop. Badly needed. Boots, quinine, money, and Tommy gun ammunition." After this successful transmission, the signallers named the set after Winston Churchill. They called it Winnie the War Winner. The signallers proposed that their Winnie was much better than the English cigar-smoking one. And so it was that after 20 days of concentrated effort, raids, scrounging, trial and error, communication between the beleaguered Commando Unit and mainland Australia was obtained. Initial para-drop resupply was conducted by Darwin-based RAAF Hudson bombers and Catalina flying boats. However, there was extreme risk in using this as a primary means of supply, so the Royal Australian Navy was tasked to commence sustained resupply operations through their flotilla of special craft, corvettes, and destroyers. American General Douglas MacArthur encouraged the sustainment of the guerrilla operations as he saw the value of a small force tying up a considerably larger force as helpful to his overall strategy. Now, with support and regular resupply, the Second Independent Company were able to continue its campaign of harassment and sabotage against the Japanese. Plans were finally made to reinforce the Second with another commando unit, the 2nd Fourth. On the 22nd of September, the destroyer HMAS Voyager left Darwin carrying the 2nd Fourth Australian Independent Company. However, the reinforcement did not go according to plan, and is the subject for another video. Full credit and acknowledgement were given to Max Lovelace for demonstrating great initiative, which without a doubt saved the 2nd. To most unit members, Lovelace radio would seem like the work of a genius, although his fellow signaller, Don Murray, put it down as pure arse. The stress, pressure, and continuous toil on the assignment took its toll on Lovelace, who experienced a nervous breakdown and was sent back to Australia not long after. Unfortunately, his illness continued after returning to Australia, and he was discharged from the Army in November of 1943. Signaller Max Lovelace was rewarded for his work on Winnie the War Winner with a mention in dispatches. Winnie the War Winner is a near-permanent exhibition at the Australian War Memorial. Check it out on your next visit. You now know much more about this ingenious scrapyard wireless. And remember, no comms, no bombs.